mean, don't start it yet. But
Oh, I already did start it, though.
dude, come on, I'm still fucking trying to find this video.
We better hurry.
Okay.
Yeah, this is your audition for the couch casting video.
Couch casting, nice.
Yeah. You
What
nervous?
up, yo?
You nervous?
No, not at all.
Oh, good, because you're a movie star, baby.
With this hair, yeah, I'm always a movie star.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is H from the Comeback Sports Podcast, and this is Season 4, Episode 4. And joining me today is Mike, a.k.a. Moneymaker Mike, a.k.a. Cornball Mike. And you'll find out why we call him Cornball Mike very shortly.
They don't call me that.
Yeah, well, at least I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, he calls me that all the time.
Okay. To kind of go over the topics, as you can tell, me and Mike are both wearing some football jerseys because it's week 1 and it's going to be Packers at Vikings on Sunday.
Sunday only.
Sunday only. It's not prime time, is it?
It's 3:25, so
No.
that's America's game of the week.
Oh, okay. There you go.
All right, that's what they call it.
So here's what me and Mike are going to do. We're just going to kind of go over both our teams. Mike will talk about what he likes or dislikes about his team so far. I'll do the same for my team. We'll do kind of like a quarter basis of what the predictions are going to be for each quarter. And then we'll do some kind of NFC North predictions along with what the season outcome is going to look like. And then we'll take a quick break and kind of talk about some other sports-related topics. But first off, Mike, thanks for coming on. I feel like
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we always talk about sports when. Oh yeah, Mike's my coworker, by the way, and we usually chat about sports instead of working. Don't tell our bosses. And it's like, why don't we just get on the show and talk about it rather than talk shit at the desk
During hours.
Yeah, during work hours. But yeah, like I said, thanks for coming in. And since you're the guest of the show, why don't you go ahead and talk about your team first?
Oh, my Vikings. They've made a lot of changes this offseason, starting with the GM and coach, which is great. But the problem is they're going by this thing called a competitive rebuild, which is not a tear down. They're not completely rebuilding the team. They're just kind of adding new players. So it really doesn't seem like any kind of different approach than what any other team is doing. I mean, we have the same starting QB, the same wide receivers, pretty much all the same offensive players. It was just a really big change up in the scheme. And then the defensive scheme is massively changed too. I mean, we were going 4-3 for the longest time, and now it's going to be a 3-4 defense. We added some guys, Zadarius Smith from the Packers. We got D. Hunt back. He's going to be great. But I don't know. This is going to be one of those wait and see kind of things because, I mean, everyone's chipper and excited about it, but we also haven't lost a game yet. So once that happens, then we'll know, what we're working with going forward.
Yeah, no, definitely we'll be talking about the acquisition for Zadarius because, quite frankly, I prefer him over Preston, but I'll jump into that later. But in terms of kind of what I like about my team, start with the receivers. I talked about this last episode. There's a lot of question marks. I don't know what to expect, especially now since Allen Lazard and Christian Watson are still questionable. So Romeo Doubs may have to be that guy. And as I said, Rodgers has talked good things about him, so hopefully he can step up to the occasion. And running backs, that's where I'm seeing the most certainty. It's a 1-2 punch. I mean,
love the running backs.
Yeah. Aaron Jones fits very well in kind of like a West Coast offense that Rodgers likes. Like he's utility knife. He can make some catches and big plays. And speaking of big plays, you got A.J. Dillon, who has tree trunks for legs.
Dude, the guy's massive. He's massive.
He's a strapping young man, as McAfee said. But yeah, he's perfect for third and short situations. I'm sure fantasy owners will like him in those sort of red zone opportunities. In terms of O-line, I'm hoping David Bakhtiari is going to be back on track for week 1 because he's a Pro Bowler. And Ohio State's Josh Myers is looking pretty good for a sophomore year. In terms of the defensive side, man, I'm very excited to see the cornerbacks and safeties put in work. Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, Adrian Amos, Darnell Savage, and one of my favorite rookies last year was Eric Stokes. It's going to be great to see that.
Packers got a scary defense.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I was more afraid of the Packers defense than their offense. Like right now, outside of Lazard, I can't think of anyone, and even Lazard himself isn't that impressive. But there's no one really impressive on that offense. I like the running backs, but they're not like Aaron Jones 2 years ago was super top tier. Now AJ Dillon's given him much more of like more competition. They're going to be splitting more touches. So but their defense, dude. I even drafted them. And I'm very opposed to drafting Packers defense, but now I'm locked in.
Yeah, the only thing I'm not sure with the defense is just kind of like the run game. It seems like year after year they always allow big plays when other teams are running it.
Who's that big guy they got though? That nose tackle? Kenny Clark?
Yes.
Yeah, he's good though.
Yeah, I like Kenny. In terms of like what I like from the Vikings, I did kind of write some notes down. It just depends, man. You got performance anxiety Kirk over here, man.
Yes.
Is he gonna step up or?
That's the thing. Like a lot of people were saying, his relationship with the former regime was just not good, and that was something that was holding him back. But the guy's 34. He's a grown man. Like, all right, the coach isn't like your best friend, but does he need to be? Like, you have all these other weapons around you. He's a smart guy. Like, he gets along well enough with everyone. Like, that can't be the excuse. And we're going to find out this year if it really is, because he has reportedly a great relationship with their new coach, Kevin O'Connell. He used to work with him back when they were both in Washington. So they have somewhat of a rapport already. But it just seems like Kirk's not the kind of guy who's going to go out there and lead your team like a Brady or a Rodgers. Like, he's going to take his notes from his coach. He's going to apply them, and if they work, they work. If they don't, hey, that's what the coach told me to do, so it's out of my control.
Would you say he's kind of more systematic?
He's 100% set. Like, he's systematic and conditional, meaning if the conditions around him are perfect, like the line's holding up, his receivers are catching the ball, running backs are doing what they got to do, this guy is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. But the second he faces some adversity, there we go, adversity, man, this guy, he just folds like a lawn chair. That's just how, look up like what other sports reporters have objectively said about him. He's great when conditions are great, but when things slip up, he's Kirk.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about that in terms of the situational base, because like when you look at the numbers, he's very efficient.
Super efficient.
That's when context comes into play. It's like, when does he fold like a launcher, as you said, and it's big moments.
It's the biggest moments. Our great highlight of this was, I think it was last year or maybe it was 2 years ago against Washington, or maybe it was either Washington or San Francisco. They're approaching the goal. They might even be on the goal line, but they're in like a 4th and goal situation. They have at least one timeout left, and this is a crucial play. They have to convert here, and Kirk lines up under the guard instead of the center. There were just so many things going on. He's trying to direct other people that he literally lines up under the guard, and they had to burn a timeout for this. I don't even remember if they converted on that play or not, but they had to burn a timeout because this guy, he just got so nervous that he lined up under the guard instead of the center. And he's done this in college once before. He's also had a situation where instead of clocking the ball, spiking it, he took a knee. A lot of people forget about that, but he did do that at least one time in his college career. I think he might have done it in the NFL once too. So he's not the best under pressure, which means your defense and your other players have to bail him out more often. Like, he can't be put in that, hey, we got to get a touchdown on this last drive to win.
And that's when like Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook have to come in and
that's when they
be who they are. Because I'll make the argument that Justin Jefferson may be better than Jamar Chase.
I think everyone thinks. Most people outside of Cincinnati fans, I think, also agree with that.
Yeah, which I had in my notes is like, do you feel like with Justin Jefferson taking the spotlight, especially for like fantasy owners, like Adam Thielen has been pushed aside a little bit, or do you think the production is still there?
No, Adam Thielen was never the number one here. For him, it was Stephon Diggs, and Diggs was a late round draft pick. So comparatively, Diggs worked his way to the top, and he solidified himself for a reason. Adam also solidified himself as a receiver for a reason too, but he was never the number one. Even when Justin was just getting there, like for some odd reason, when he first got drafted, they didn't start him the first 2 weeks. He was coming off the bench. which I think affected his rookie numbers. He would have been a 1,400-yard receiver that year. But he didn't get the start right away, even though he was totally NFL ready. I don't think Adam feels any way about it. I feel like, if anything, he likes that there's another guy like a Diggs who takes that pressure off him, so that second cornerback, that really good one, it's going to cover him. That's why Adam gets so many touchdowns in the end zone. They're focused on, is Dalvin getting the ball or is Justin getting the ball? And then there's Adam over there in the corner spotting up, bam, touchdown.
That's a good point. Yeah.
He gets paid a lot, Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
For what he does, he gets paid a lot. And they're actually going to have to think about moving on from him next year because he gets paid. There's just no way to give him less money at this point. So they might have to just cut him.
Yeah, they might have to, but we'll see. Because then you also have Jalen Reagor that's in the mix now.
Yes, yes. I was hoping you'd bring this up. I was not happy with them doing that because in order to make that roster spot open, they had to cut someone. So they cut one of their other receivers, Amir Smith-Marset from Iowa. He was showing a lot of promise, and for a guy who they probably weren't going to have to pay a lot, who was okay with his role in the system already, they kind of just ditched him for a guy that is totally unproven, and if anything has proven that he shouldn't have been selected in the first round, especially not in front of Justin Jefferson. And I think it's very awkward having done that when I don't think him and Justin have any kind of beef, but I think Jalen Reagor's been asked that a lot since coming to the Vikings. Like, hey, is it weird that you and Justin are on the same team now? And he has to be there like, no, we're on the same team. Like, what do you expect him to say? You know what I mean?
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, like, is he really going to say that? You know what I mean? Like, of course not. Of course he's going to be, team friendly and all that. I'm sure he does deep down, and I would feel the same. I'd feel a little weird about being on the same team, on the same receiving core as the guy that was selected after me, but who's been arguably the best in the league.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, in terms of things that I do like about your kind of like the overall team for the Vikings is like I looked at the depth chart, and you don't have a lot of questionable players, which is good. So that means you can probably start the season in a good note. And looking at your schedule, you got the hardest games I can see on this schedule is like Green Bay twice, obviously, Philly, New Orleans, Buffalo, and Indy. It's not that bad of a schedule. I would say it's kind of in mid-tier in terms of difficulty.
Now, so there is one 3-game stretch where I think will show who the Vikings really are. And I think it goes New England, Dallas, and then someone else who's like a mid-tier team that's pretty good, who has playoff aspirations. And that is going to be really tough for them because the New England game is on Thanksgiving. It's the primetime Thanksgiving game. So it's a short week already, and then they have to travel a lot between those. I don't think any of those games are home games. So they do have, like you said, the Packers are going to be – that's going to probably be their toughest 2 matchups will be the Packers. And then, of course, they got to start off against the Packers. So I'm a little nervous about their schedule. I have not looked at the Packers schedule, though.
Yeah, I need to look more into that because I assume it's probably going to be similar to last year, and we'll kind of go into more about that when we talk about the overall outcome. But let's kind of like transition over to like the predictions of week 1 because it's in Minnesota. So as I just mentioned, me and Mike will kind of just go by quarter basis. Since Mike led off last segment, I'll kind of start it off in terms of my predictions. Starting with quarter 1, I think Vikings are going to score first, and it's going to be Kirk to Jefferson. I mean, that's the obvious choice and the best duo within that team. What are your thoughts on quarter 1?
I 1,000% agree. Well, as long as the Vikings get the ball first, I think they will score first. They just have a really good history of doing that. And if it's a Justin Jefferson connection or Kirk Cousins connection to Jefferson, that's great for my fantasy team. But after that, after quarter 1, I really don't think the Vikings are going to score much.
Oh, well, in quarter 2, I got Packers actually getting their first TD. I think they might get a field goal within quarter 1, but Vikings are going to get the lead in quarter 2, but then Rodgers is going to what I noticed about Rodgers, he's always rusty in the first quarter or even first game of seasons.
Yeah.
And I think by the second quarter, I mean, it may be a situation where his receivers aren't ready yet, so he's going to have to rely on Aaron Jones for the first touchdown, which will come before halftime. And then halftime comes around, and I would say in third quarter, both teams are going to have the same amount of points before they get into the fourth quarter.
I'd agree with that. So second quarter, I think the Vikings are going to go through a little. They might sprinkle in a field goal in the second quarter, but I think they'll go on a little bit of a touchdown drought. Halftime, they'll make their adjustments and stuff. This is the thing. If this was the last regime, I could tell you exactly how the game was going to go based on how all their other games went. They would be, one score in the first quarter, nothing in the second, a little bit in the third, and then they'll make a desperate move in the fourth to tie, make the game really close, tie it up or whatever. But with this regime, I really just don't know. You know what I mean? They can come out at halftime with, a great new scheme and strategy, what they're going to do for the rest of the game, or they could just stick with what they've been doing. It really just depends on this coach. Like, I just don't know enough about him.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a lot of adjustments for both teams.
Right.
Because Packers, yes, the same coach, but young receivers, as I mentioned. So there's a little uncertainty in terms of how accurate or kind of how sure I am this is going to happen. But I will say Dalvin Cook will at least get a TD within this game. I forgot to mention that part for quarter three is when he'll get that first one.
I can see that.
In terms of quarter four, it's going to be pretty much the same narrative that we see with almost any Packers game. Is going to be that Packers D is going to have a huge stop. Rodgers is going to just get enough done to put Mason Crosby in a situation, get a game-winning field goal.
They still got Mason Crosby?
I know. I forgot to mention that. The one thing I don't like at the moment for the Packers is special teams. Mason Crosby is old as hell, man, and I like their special team coach. He was great in Las Vegas. Heard good things about him. And honestly, I thought he should have been offered the head coaching job, but I don't know. It's just I feel like there's too much uncertainty with the special teams in general based on what we saw with the 49ers playoff game. It's like, fuck, I don't want this to happen again. But I think Rodgers will be Rodgers and just put us in position to at least get the field goal. So I would say Mason doesn't have to kick it more than 40 yards when that happens in the fourth quarter.
I could see that. The other thing is, though, do you think, based on some of the games, some of the outcomes last year, or even just situations, not really outcomes, do you think Rodgers still trusts Crosby to do that, or do you think he's going to take more control over it? Be like, you know what, I'm not going to settle for this. Get enough to get that field goal. I'm really going to try to score touchdowns here because I really can't trust Mason Crosby anymore with that game-winning kick.
No, Rodgers, they're very close. Have been with the Packers together for a long time, and Rodgers, here's about Rodgers, he's great, but he likes to do the bare minimum to get the game win. You ever notice that Packers usually don't win by huge margins?
Yeah, they don't.
It's usually they dominate in the first half, and then they slow down the last half, and Rodgers has to kind of wake up a little bit. Okay, looks like they're catching. I'm just got to make sure we put us in good position.
That's so weird.
That's just not how he operates, man. That's why the people say he's very efficient, because he just does the bare minimum he needs to get the job done.
Well, he takes zero risks. The guy has almost no interceptions for a reason, but and that can hurt you a lot, because then you're not taking that 50-yard shot that you probably could to win the game. You're settling for maybe a little dink and dunk here to get in field goal position, and then you put it on another guy. But at the end of the day, he's still credited with that game-winning drive. I think that's the part he likes.
Yeah, he does. Strangely enough, Rodgers doesn't even have the most fourth quarter comebacks, which I thought was kind of surprising. He does?
Derek Carr?
I thought Tom Brady did for some reason.
I think Derek Carr might, or maybe that was a last year stat or 2 years ago. But Derek Carr, I know, was really up there. But I mean, how often are the Packers playing from behind?
Not often.
It's not that often. So
especially in the regular season.
Right. You don't need. So that's the thing. That's why it's such a weird stat, because that also means you were constantly playing from behind, which that's not good. You should be. You could say that Rodgers gets a lot of early leads, and that's really up to the defense to not blow it at that point.
Yeah, in normal circumstance, if this was in Green Bay, Rodgers and team would definitely have a huge lead going into the half. But because it's in Minnesota, I don't think that's going to be the case in the first half. Like I said, my prediction is it's going to be a game-winning field goal from the Packers.
And I believe so. On the opposite, I really think the Vikings will win this game, just because they're at home against the Packers. I think they'll win. But if this was in Green Bay, opening up in Green Bay, I would probably say the Packers would win. But just because they're at home, I think the Vikings do win this game. After that, I don't really know. I mean, they got to go on Monday night against the Eagles, and we all know how much Kirk struggles with those Monday night games.
That is true.